What's up, guys? Today we'll be reviewing this silly little book called the Iliad. It talks about the epic siege of the city of Troy and where even the Greek gods intervene. Basically, the story revolves around Achilles, a Greek hero from the Trojan War, and takes place in ancient Greece. The story goes like this. Achilles and King Agamemnon do another siege together because this book takes place during the Trojan War, and they take two girls. One of the girls' dad, the priest of Apollo, wants her back, and long story short, Agamemnon has to return her. Agamemnon and Achilles then argue over the other girl because Agamemnon had to give away the girl that he got and Achilles kept his. They argued, and Achilles takes his troops back from the Trojan War, though his close friend Patroclus wears his armor and takes his place instead. Patroclus then dies by Hector, a Trojan warrior's hand, which makes Achilles rejoin the Trojan War to avenge him, and the story ends with Hector's death by Achilles and Patroclus' funeral. The Iliad actually comes in a pair, supposed to be read before the Odyssey, both written by a Greek author by the name of Homer, but we won't go into it because of the fact that the whole book in English translations uses ye olde English, which is basically like thee, thou, etc., etc., because it was made in the 8th century BC. That brings us on to the first topic, the difficulty to read this book. Oh boy, when I tell you this book was hard, I'm not kidding. The book took quite a while to get used to, with all of these, thous, whomst, and yoked, which isn't related to egg yolk, and much more. I started this book on a grand whim, only to be left wondering what the age range is for this. Although the book proved to be quite a challenge because of the way it was written, it was still an awesome book because of the difference between speech back then and speech now. For instance, an insult I read near the start was wine bibber, which refers to someone who drinks a lot of wine. And I kid you not, it's so funny I never forgot after reading it. Then again, there's more to a book than the vocabulary used in it, which leads us to the next part of our review, the violence. Yes, that's right, you heard me, violence. Though it does make sense considering the fact that a lot of the book is about a battle, or siege, or war. So it didn't really catch me too much by surprise, and it doesn't go too much into detail about deaths and injuries, but I figured I might as well mention it just to let you guys know. In terms of violence, I'd say it hits a 2 to 4 out of 10, 1 being barely even violent and 10 being super violent, but it can really depend on the reader and their tolerance. What I loved about this book was the emotion-filled scenes. I kid you not, I read the part where Hector left the city of Troy to fight Achilles, and his mother was like begging him to stay. That scene hit me like a Shanghai maglev at full speed. I cried at that scene, and continued to remember it literal months after reading it, and I just loved how the book portrayed different emotions. Also, not forgetting about the way that the book was descriptive in the best way possible. It wasn't too descriptive that it would take pages to describe a scene or a tiny thing, but still descriptive enough to portray the intended moment or emotion. The Iliad did an amazing job on portraying and illustrating the story in a way that makes sense even to my 7th grader brain. To conclude, I'd rate this book a 9 out of 10 and would recommend it to anyone who likes Greek mythology. However, I would suggest to not use the same translation I read because it kept mentioning Jove or a Roman god, which was extremely confusing for me to read because, as I said, the Iliad happens in ancient Greece, which is not Rome.